The episode begins with Elja and Moses heading to, hopefully, find someone who can make the cube work. On their way, Moses asks Elja about his mother. Elja is a bit reluctant to tell the man everything, and simply tells him that she was obsessed with the catastrophe. Moses realizes the kid's reluctance and starts telling the story of the catastrophe. He tells Elja about the day December 29th, when everything related to technology became a waste. Almost all forms of technology failed and the world was driven into darkness, and by December 31st, a global blackout happened, and then came the Middle Ages once again. According to Moses, the Atlanteans were responsible for all of this to happen, or at least they knew about it and decided to keep it to themselves, as in this new world only their technology is useful, or even functional. Elsewhere, Liv is still pondering about the past. She is with the Crimson Tribe now, but she still wonders what would have happened if they weren't attacked. After all, before all of this they traded with a small village called Little Praha, and had no issues at all. No one even knew that they existed. David tries to console her, but she just doesn't want to be consoled. Her entire tribe was gone, and her brother. God knows where they were. She needed to save them. Keanu, on the other hand, is in the cell alongside several thousand other slaves captured by the Crows. They are in the production factory responsible for producing a drug called the Walk. There Keanu meets with a strange guy named Linus who shows him the workplace. Fortunately, they both work in packaging. Linus reveals that those in production itself live less than a few months because of the massive gas emission inside the facility. Linus and Keanu were safe from that, but when it comes to the guards' brutality, they had to face it all. Grietta, the Crow soldier, has been captured by the Crimson crew and is put in a massive cell, and Liv goes to meet with her. She tells Grietta that she had been hired by the Crimson crew to look after her, and soon she could get the keys, and they could escape. In exchange, Liv asks for a way for her to enter the Crow facility without being seen. She tries to get the information from Grietta, but the woman doesn't trust Liv enough. No matter the assurances, Grietta refuses to speak before she leaves the cell, and is free for real. Moses and Elja finally reach a secluded facility that Moses claims to be of one of his friends. However, when they try to enter, they are met with a gun pointing at their faces. The place belongs to an electronic engineer named Amina, who is in fact Moses' friend, but isn't really on good terms with him. Apparently, they were lovers, and Moses simply left her one day, and it had been 2 years now that he had finally arrived. She demands that Moses explain how he could even dare to show his face to her anymore, and threatens to blast it with her gun. But Elja shows the cube to her, and they all calm down. Amina takes them all to her facility, and begins working on somehow fixing the cube. Soon enough, she has managed to get the cube functioning, but there seems to be an issue. They don't have any idea on how to activate it. Moses and Amina start bickering about the whole thing, and so Elja takes the cube to test for himself. He looks at the cube from all angles and soon discovers a strange opening at the top of the cube. Suddenly, the cube starts floating in the air and emits a strange holographic image of what looks like the moon landing, before it falls to the floor and is yet again unusable. In the prison facility, Keanu is adamant that he wants to leave and asks Linus if there is a way that he can escape the facility. Linus tells him there is only one way a slave can be free: a bodge. The bodge is a type of gladiator festival made by the Crows in which the slaves fight, and only one of the slaves who survives can become a crow and live a free life. However, to enter the bodge, one must be chosen by the leader of the facility, Lady Vivara, and to get her audience was no simple task. That night, as Keanu is sleeping, he notices one of the cruel guards named Gregor working with 2 slaves from the packaging department to smuggle Walk. He watches all of this unfold and doesn't speak a word. The next day, Keanu quickly tells Linus that he has something that might attract the attention of Lady Vivara. He reveals what he had seen, and Linus immediately takes him to a place where he would meet the lady. However, it turns out that Linus was working with the smugglers, and soon the 2 men from last night arrive to attack Keanu. They throw him off the railings into the pool below, and one of the slaves tries to strangle him to death. Keanu somehow manages to grab a sharp shard and kill the slave before the other slave could join in. The soldiers arrive and take them away. Keanu is dragged before the Lady Vivara and is demanded an explanation for his insolent behavior. The poor guy tells the lady that he had seen Gregor and a few of the slaves stealing the Walk, but Gregor outright denies it. Vivara takes the word of her soldier over a slave and decides to give Keanu the death sentence. To gain Grietta's trust, Liv takes matters into her own hands, pretending to betray David. She traps David outside the same cell containing Grietta, and then frees her. The 2 then head to the forest with Liv holding Grietta at gunpoint. Once Grietta reveals the way to infiltrate Braddock, Liv alerts the Crimson soldiers using a flare, and the 2 are recaptured. She had managed to find the way to get to the base, as Grietta reveals there is a subway tunnel in the western route that hasn't really been flooded yet, and gives access to the city from under the barricades. With this new information, David is really happy and forgets all about the drastic measure that Liv took. The two even share a passionate kiss after the whole thing. And finally, the next day, David gives Liv a new Crimson Soldier uniform. He tells her that the uniform was from the European Union before the catastrophe, and the base upon which the Crimson Soldiers were founded, and tells her to act wisely to uphold its honor. Liv is ecstatic after getting the uniform, and especially because now David has planned to launch a mission to save her people. Liv is then taken to the soldiers' base where Merc gives her a bunch of equipment and instructions. She also gets to choose one gun. There are all sorts of automatic and awesome guns to choose from, but Liv chooses a weak crossbow that can only fire 3 arrows at maximum. The whole team is then gathered for David to brief the plan to rescue the people. He plans to use the things that Greta had told them and storm the place as soon as possible. David explains that the mission will take place with 2 teams, one under his and the other under the command of Merc. He also tells them all that since he had informed the Crimson Capital about this mission, he will take responsibility for the mission and will be held accountable for it. He, however, does give the option for them to leave the cause if they feel like it, but everybody shows their support. Elsewhere, Keanu is ready for his death sentence and is taken to the death ring. However, before he could be hung to his death, Lady Vivara suddenly arrives. She shows everyone that she had found some walk in the dead slave's intestines, which meant that what Keanu said was true. She then halts the execution and asks Gregor to tell the truth if he wants to see his family live. The man then agrees to his crime and also points out Linus and the other prisoner as his accomplice before slitting his own throat and dying, praising the name of Vivara. The lady then commands the soldiers to hang the 2 prisoners instead, and then take Keanu to her special castle. Back at Amina's place, it appears that the cube can't really be fixed because they need a fusion core for the cube to function properly, since the core that it originally had was broken. The only person that could have such a core is Bracker, a smuggler from the Southern Empire who dealt with items from before the catastrophe. Moses and Elja decide to head to the place with a few items from the old age to somehow convince Bracker. As the 2 are departing, Amina's home is attacked by the Crow search party. Moses wants to stay back this time to help, but Amina asks them to go as she can handle the crows herself. Moses reluctantly leaves. Keanu, on the other hand, is taken to the facility owned by Vivara, which appears to be filled with her favorite slaves. At first, Keanu asks the slave there named Duate if this place was the Bodge, but the man just smiles, asking him why Vivara would want her favorite slaves to die. That night, all of the slaves in the palace are brought to dinner alongside Vivara. They all seem submissive and have dense makeup on. However, Keanu refuses to act like them and is defiant. He even refuses to eat the dinner that is served. This behavior, however, doesn't seem to displease Vivara. Instead, she seems aroused by a slave defying her and takes Keanu to her bedroom. There she makes her other slaves forcefully make him strip and forces Keanu to fornicate with her while pointing a knife at his neck. When Keanu returns back to his chambers, Duate and the other slaves are angry and jealous of him and accuse him of seducing Vivara, but Keanu angrily states that he is a slave and did the thing that he was asked to do and nothing else. Elja and Moses finally reach the Southern Empire, and Moses takes him to a strange underground bar. As soon as he sits down for a drink, he is put at gunpoint by one of Bracker's men. The guy asks why Moses had returned back, and Moses assures him that he was there to repay the debt that he owed Bracker. Moses then shows the man the tech that he had brought, and so he and Elja are then escorted to Bracker's base. The whole palace is a fort full of stuff from the world before the catastrophe. The man even has a series of televisions playing the news from back when the catastrophe had happened. Moses tries to lure Bracker into giving them the fusion core by offering him the new tablet that was made in 2029, the kind of stuff that Bracker collected. However, Bracker is not a fool. He knows that only people with the Atlantean cube would be looking for the fusion core. The man then asks his goons to search Elja, and surely he finds the cube. Once Bracker gets the cube, he throws Elja and Moses out of the base. Elsewhere, David, Liv, and the Crimson Soldiers are ready to head for the mission, but suddenly forces from the Crimson Capital arrive. Apparently, Merle had informed David's plan to the capital, and now the plan was off. David is then placed under arrest for treason by General Cameron, the leader of the Crimsons. Subscribe and hit that like button to help our channel grow. Turn the notifications on so you won't miss any of our new videos. Thanks for watching.